I want to talk about Simon Gawesworth's single spey. Simon Gawesworth is probably the most respected and beloved spey casting instructor in the world. And there's a reason for that, is he's a great instructor and a great caster. And if you've seen the Simon Gawesworth How to Do a Single Spey Cast, he gives a very good illustration about what to do with the rod tip path in the single spey cast. And the illustration is this. You're sitting in a lodge having a toddy and you look across the ski landscape and you see a guy in a red suit climbing a cliff, and he goes straight up, and when he gets to the top of the cliff, he's also at the top of the ski hill. He goes down on his skis and back up, and then when he gets to the top of the second peak, he shoots to the top of that cliff where the ski hill begins. So that's the rod tip path. So what do we take from that illustration? That Simon was doing really good drugs when he came up with that illustration. Of course, Simon does not do drugs. It was a joke and I couldn't pass it up. I was on the river with a guy the other day, helping him do trout spey, and he didn't have an off-shoulder cast, and he wanted to make one that didn't make any noise. He was very concerned about being stealthy. I didn't say anything. I just taught him how to do a single spey. And I taught him the Simon way, which was to rod tip goes up, down, up, and you cast. So what did I tell him? Up, down, up, cast. That was the mantra. He threw a fabulous single spey cast and was able to fish using a single spey cast using just that. Just remember that the rod tip path does the ski visual from Simon. You don't start with the rod tip pointing straight downstream and lift up. So I'm going to get into it. The main trick is that you don't start facing downstream and then lift up and cast. You're going to be lifting here. This is where it all has to start. You have to lift towards the target. You do not lift towards the downstream dangle. So it starts here, goes straight up, and then we go down, up, and cast. My feet are pointing towards the target. Simon describes it as the lift, which is straight up, the D-loop stroke, which is down immediately. We don't go lift and then across. Lift straight up, D-loop stroke goes immediately down in a 45, up at a 45 approximately. Then we're in the key position and we cast. And if you don't want to overthink the single spey, you can do it this way and get good results. You have to lift at the proper angle and then go straight into the D-loop stroke and then fire back to the target. But always remember, no matter what method or style you're using, you have to be smooth. And you don't really want to accelerate until you're on the second half of the D-loop stroke. Lift, down, up. My preference is a little bit shallower of a sweep. I like to go down a little gentler. So you'll have to practice. Simon comes right out and says it's a really hard cast, and it is. single spey isn't that easy, but if you can feel your way through, the most important part is the second half of the sweep, the second half of the D-loop stroke, where you accelerate a little bit. You got to be really smooth so you set that anchor really nice and flat and you don't crumple it.
People who get really good at anything just keep reproducing the experience over and over again consciously. And they do it so many times.